A little while ago, I did a little poll asking you guys what theme to do next, and the majority of the votes wanted me to cover our favorite jack-of-all-trade characters, Kuki, Diona, and Noelle. Welcome back to my Genshin signature weapon series. We'll be looking at these three characters and my weapon ideas that synergize with their kit. Before we begin, I'll just show you my usual disclaimers for the series, along with my personal rules and guidelines for making weapon concepts. Take a few seconds to pause if you need to. These will be in the description, as well as links and credits to music, so you can look there at any time. Alright, if you're ready, let's begin.
If the Arataki gang stirs up any trouble, I'll drag every last one of them back to apologize.
First of all, we have Kuki. She has proven to be one of the best units since Dendro's release, due to her easy investment for Hyperbloom teams. She has two distinct roles, an EM sub-DPS and an HP scaler. Players will usually focus on one stat or the other, so I wanted to make a weapon that bridged that gap. Shrine Rebel has a base attack of 454 and an elemental mastery substat of 221. The passive, Deputy's Degree, gives a 6 to 12% HP bonus whenever the user triggers a reaction. They can have a max of 5 stacks and are able to get 1 stack per second. The effect lasts for 5 seconds and can occur even if the user is off-field. If they get 5 stacks, they will gain a 20% healing bonus, which persists until they go below max stacks. For this weapon, I didn't feel like I had to do anything crazy with her niche. As I mentioned before, building her with EM has a very high damage ceiling with very low investment. But by doing so, her HP stats take a dip, which decreases her healing and burst damage. This weapon simply helps to bring some power back into her HP stats so that she can have more value in those departments. If you're wondering why I chose for the sword to have an EM substat with HP passives instead of vice versa, it's because in general, players will build their artifacts with EM main stats, and I wanted to make sure that the average player wouldn't have to change their artifact build. Looking at the damage calculations, we can see that Key of Kajni Suit still provides higher average burst damage because of the higher HP stat, but the healing and Hyperbloom damage is better on Shrine. Alright, now we can look at who else can use this. Instead of my usual listings of who can use the substat, passive, and both, I'm mainly putting a focus on the passive. Who are the best users, and who is it simply viable on? Well, building HP and EM is definitely a Nilou sword. However, there are a couple caveats that make Shrine worse for Nilou. 1. Nilou's bloom bonuses mainly come from HP scaling, and Key still beats out HP percent by around 20%. Second, Shrine's passive is reliant on Nilou triggering blooms, and even if you manage to get full stacks on her, her bloom damage is still better on Key. For characters this weapon may be viable on, we have Layla and Kirara. These two characters have the potential to trigger reactions with their kit in order to gain that 60% HP bonus, but it's not as easy as it is with Kuki. Furthermore, they wouldn't really want that EM substat or healing bonus, unless you're running Melt or Spread respectively. In summary, this weapon is good for people who want to invest all of Kuki's kit for lower investment. She's able to get more EM for reactions and more healing potential with the HP and healing bonuses. That's all I have for Kuki, so let's move on to Diona.
What else do I need to create the most dreadfully disgusting cocktail?
Diona's a unit who provides multiple forms of defensive utility through healing and shielding. She's also one of the only bow users who can heal or shield, so it was pretty easy to make a weapon that only she could use. Spring Blessing has a base attack of 454 and a 61.3 energy recharge substat. The passive, Fairy's Gift, states the following. When the user creates a shield or crystallized shield, they will gain a burst base damage bonus equal to 15 to 30% of their max HP. Additionally, all party members gain a 15 to 30% shield strength bonus. Both effects last for 15 seconds. Every time the user heals, they regain 2 energy. This energy regeneration can be gained every 1.5 seconds even if off-field. I basically wanted to give Diona a boost for every form of utility she provides. For starters, her burst damage is severely lacking. She gains a crowd damage bonus with her Ascension, but she doesn't have high attack scaling, so it's effectively useless. The shield's health is actually pretty good, but if Diona's the only one who can use this weapon, we might as well make it better, right? And finally, Diona generally uses Favonius or Sacrificial for her weapon, so the healing to energy passive is just so that it puts it in line with those two weapons. Here, we can see the numbers for Diona's damage, shielding, and healing. Depending on what you want, you can have different artifact stats. For more burst damage, Cryo Damage Goblet and Crit Circlet is the best option. But if you want better all-around utility, going HP on those pieces is better. Then for the sands, run HP or ER depending on how much energy you need. Originally, I designed the weapon to give stacks based on her elemental skill hits, but that sent me down a rabbit hole where Yelan was able to use it better. To make sure Aqua didn't get outdone, I started messing around with giving the burst damage bonus limited weapon hits, and I calculated motion value. And only days later did I realize that Diona's the only bow character who makes a shield, so all of those calculations were kind of pointless. To avoid having those findings go to waste, I'll just post the original concept in the comments and you can see how my thought process went. For characters this weapon is best on, I don't really have anyone. No one else in the bow roster is an HP shielder and healer. For characters that can use this weapon, I have Goro and Linny. Goro can make crystallized shields, so it's possible to increase his burst damage and shield strength. Additionally, a C4 Goro can heal, and that means that you can gain some energy at the same time. Then for Linny, he's the only character who has a healing talent. But it's once every 15 seconds, so that 2 extra energy is not going to amount to anything. Alright, that's all for Diona. Let's move on to Noelle.
You seem tired. Would you like some tea? I'll brew you some.
Out of all the multi-purpose characters we have, Noelle is by far one of the top ones. She consolidates healing and shielding like Diona, but a big part of her kit also revolves around being an on-field damage dealer. Unfortunately, in addition to her Jack-of-all-trades title, she also falls under Master of None. My weapon idea is meant to try and bring up all of her abilities to a higher level. Dusk Till Dawn has a 454 base attack and a 73.6% crit damage bonus. The passive, made just for you, grants the user with the Rose Warrior effect. At 1, 2, and 3 stacks, the user gains a 6, 12, and 22 to 12, 24, and 44% defense, shield strength, healing bonus, and elemental damage bonus of their element for every stack that is obtained. The user will gain a stack in the following scenarios. Normal or charge attacks hit opponents, and this effect lasts for 3 seconds. Healing or overhealing, which lasts for 7 seconds. And being protected by a shield, and the stack will disappear when the shield disappears. Only 1 stack may be obtained per scenario. Let's start off with the first part, the crit damage substat. As of right now, we don't have a crit damage weapon that has a 454 base attack, but I was able to find patterns in existing weapons to safely conclude the substat would be 73.6%. First of all, we have Deathmatch, a crit rate weapon with a 454 base attack. This weapon has a 36.8% crit rate bonus. Compared to other weapons, the crit rate substat is always half the amount of a crit damage one with the same base attack. Second, looking at all the 4-star crit rate weapons, we can see that there is a 9.2% difference between weapons of different base attacks. And the difference between a 510 and 565 weapon for crit damage is 18.4. Once again, double the amount of crit rate. I'll get into it a little bit later, but changing this base attack and crit damage substat actually helped make this Noelle's best weapon. For the actual passive, Noelle has all the means of getting all 3 stacks. She's usually on field to do normal and charge attacks, she can heal, and can make a shield. Every other claymore has to rely on someone else to get more stacks. And for Itto in particular, he can't heal at all, so his max stacks will always be 2. This weapon basically just gives Noelle a kit-wide buff. I think it's pretty straightforward, so for this section, I want to talk a lot more about my process behind it, because a lot of thought went into it. I actually had trouble getting this weapon to be better on Noelle while staying worse on Itto. Both of these characters are defense scaling geo damage dealers, so any increase in damage I made for Noelle scaled with Itto too. This is where the crit substat came into play. Originally, it was a 410 base attack with a 55.1% crit damage bonus, and the maximum stack bonuses were 36 instead of 44. After finding the pattern and changing the crit substat, I actually found the damage was higher. This is because attack isn't as important for characters like Noelle. However, it still wasn't enough. It was still worse on Noelle by about 4%. I was ready to call it and say it couldn't be done, but then I remembered that her C6 was a big boost in damage. Let's remember my rule. The weapon just has to synergize with the C0 variant of the character. At C0, Noelle can still get all the stacks, but with C6, her burst level shoots up by 3, increasing the defense to attack scaling. Additionally, her C6 increases at scaling by an additional 50%, so instead of 64% of Noelle's defense scaling into attack, it would be 126. This actually made it so that at C6, Dust would be better than Redhorn by 4%. Once again, I was ready to call it, but then I realized another thing. Stacks don't have to be perfectly aligned with each other. Weapons like Polar Star or Mist Splitter actually give a higher bonus on the final stack, so I figured I could do that for Noelle. I shifted the final stack bonus from 36 to 44, and it made it so that even at C0, Noelle's damage with dust was higher than Redhorn. And to make it better, C6 shot that difference up to a 10% increase. For alternate units who can use this weapon, the best one is of course Ito. As we have seen from the chart, Ito's damage is still better on Redhorn, most likely due to the fact that he can only get 2 stacks, but even so, that's barely not enough defense or geo damage to be higher than Redhorn. It is still a very good weapon. For a viable user, we have Xinyan. She's also able to get only 2 stacks, but she'll benefit from 24% defense and shield strength. The pyro damage, however, isn't as big of a boost since she's more physical based. But anyway, that's all for this video. If you enjoyed this series, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. If you have any suggestions on what concepts you want to see next, feel free to comment down below. I'll see you all next time. Bye!